Devin Haney and why he has decided he wanted to request a video removal for his fight footage against Ryan Garcia in the recent times in which he not only sued Ryan Garcia, but is now also requesting that all of these fight videos, whether it's from the Zone or any other TV networks that is hosting this particular fight, to be removed. It's not enough that he already has his unblemished record expunged, right? Because he has one loss in his record. According to BoxRec, now all of that has been switched over into an undefeated record from the previous 31-1, now back to 31-0, because of the fact that Ryan Garcia tested hot. And by the way, argue about it which way you want. It is a bit controversial considering that there are people that are involved in Devin Haney's camp that are sort of in line with the people that are running the drug testing agency. I got to be honest and be fair down the middle. Something about that is a little bit fishy. And even though I'm a Devin Haney supporter, even though that I'm going to continue to support all of his fights, watching his fights and rooting for him in all these future fights, I don't think that I would be giving you the proper integrity without mentioning these particular things at hand. And by the way, check out this little scenery that we got in the background right now, right? This is Sutter Health Park. And speaking of Oakland, where Devin Haney and his father are from, the Oakland A's now play out here in West Sacramento, right? This is where the Oakland A's play at now. Obviously, Oakland and Sacramento are two different cities. I would say Oakland is probably about 40 to 50 minutes, if not an hour from here. And it's not Oakland, but they are playing out here. Nonetheless, I just thought it was an interesting aspect to sort of bring up, right? So there it is, Sutter Health Park, the new home of the Oakland A's, the baseball team. And then right here you have the city of Sacramento in the background. And right there, if you can see right there, that is where the Golden One Arena is at, of which I filmed a few episodes of this particular stream in that area of the Golden One Arena. So what do you guys think? Is this a cowardly move on Devin Haney to do this? Or is this a calculative business decision? Now, here's something that I really don't agree with that Devin Haney is doing right now. He's planning on suing Ryan Garcia. Look, under the court of law, Devin Haney has every right to sue him. The problem is it right? Is it right to sue him? Because let's just be honest, right? In this world, man, we don't sue each other. In the fight world, people in the fight game don't go out and sue each other because it's just not what we do. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. It's, you know, I always compare the fight game to the rap game and sometimes even the underworld, right? I'll give you an example. You guys know about the Suge Knight, Orlando Anderson case, right? And for those of you that don't know, back in the 90s with Tupac Shakur, when he went and jumped a gang member in Las Vegas that led to his untimely demise, Suge Knight was sued by Orlando Anderson. He was sued by Orlando Anderson for supposedly attacking him in the MGM Grand in the casinos in which you saw the fight footage take place with Tupac and Orlando Anderson being jumped by the other Mob Piru members, which was in the part of the death row entourage. So he goes and he sues him. In the midst of that, Suge Knight pays him money in order for him to, let's say, sort of keep a hush about what is going on, right? Say that Suge wasn't one of the people that had stomped you. And obviously it failed for Suge because Suge still ended up violating parole and went to prison as a result of that Tupac Shakur and Orlando Anderson fight. in the same night, by the way, that Mike Tyson had defeated Bruce Seldon. But yeah, that's the boxing historical parts probably are not as important as what had happened to the criminal underworld in that particular night. So moving on to the subject, right? Is it ethical for you, if you are part of this niche class of people that are warriors, whether you're a gangster, whether you're a soldier, a Marine, or whether you're a professional fighter? Now, there are some people that sort of really don't care about those codes and rules of conduct, or unspoken rules of conduct, at least within the fight world. Whereas in the criminal underworld, I guess it's sort of a lot more heavily accepted that you just don't do that. You don't snitch. You don't sue on an op or an opposition, unless, of course, there is some sort of business transaction that comes with that. And again, going back to Devin Haney, maybe his decision, in order for him to go out and sue Ryan Garcia, perhaps it is a business decision for him to do that. He probably felt like Ryan Garcia destroyed his brand just based on going in there and whooping him. Yes, on steroids, although controversial to that particular notion, still, it made Devin Haney look bad. So he feels that he needs to get compensated for that, for the potential millions that he could have lost somewhere down the line. Well, now here's the reality of it. You're now undefeated again, Devin Haney. You're undefeated again. Can you use that undefeated record? And by the way, a lot of people are going to throw low-hanging fruit arguments at you for that. But is it going to help with your business, being that you're now undefeated? My answer is yes, because you got to understand this. The majority of people that watch fighting are casual fans. By the way, for those that are just tapping in, I just want you to take a look at the Oakland A's baseball stadium right behind you right here as I talk about Devin Haney, who is an Oakland Bay Area native. But we are here in Sacramento because the Oakland A's have moved to Sacramento, but yet they're still called the Oakland A's. But anyways, that's neither here or there. And then there's the city, the view of the city as well, if you can see it in the background. So anyhow, I think that Devin Haney is trying to make a business decision, but at the same time, I think that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to look at this and say, we've seen the fight, we've seen what happened, but the problem is, boxing is a sport, right? Not a fight. Let me explain something to you. If this was mixed martial arts, right, I don't think Devin Haney would be suing. You want to know why? Because let's be honest, mixed martial arts is a real fight. Boxing is a sport. It's a sporting event. It's a sporting event that simulates one portion of a fight, which is using your hands. And then even with that, it's watered down because guess what? You're using boxing gloves. And by the way, you're using boxing gloves to the size that really is more beneficial for yourself, but a little bit also beneficial to your opponent, who may sustain less cuts as a result of it. The damage will always be there. Getting rocked in your head, whether it's from a soft leather substance like a boxing glove or an MMA glove, yes, it's still damaging because you're rattling your brain regardless. But the safety as the receiver of the punch is getting, what you are getting out of that is you may get less cuts than if you would under a bare knuckle situation. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not a real fight, right? So if this was MMA, Devin Haney would not be able to do that, even though Ryan Garcia was on steroids, because MMA is a real fight. There is no comparison, and there is no debating that. So when you see a guy get kicked, get punched, even get kneed on the balls, I gotta be honest with you, man, it's all fair game. But because it's boxing and it's a sport and there's a gentleman's agreement that comes with that, Devin Haney has a little bit of an argument to make. He has a bit of a moral high ground to take in this matter. But the question is it right? Because let's just be honest about something, right? There's a lot of guys out there that have tried to sue other people in the fight game, and they really are seen as sort of an outcast fringe in the world of professional fighting. Logan Paul is an example of that with what he's doing with Dylan Dennis. Now, let's talk about that for literally 30 seconds, right? The Dylan Dennis and Logan Paul case is sort of in this situation where Logan Paul is an outsider of the fight game. He wants to be just like the rest of the boys, the rest of the guys that are in the locker room, or this imaginary locker room that we are making up in our heads where all fighters gather together, even though they're not all in the same event. But within that imaginary status, Logan Paul is a guy that is an outsider, okay, in that locker room. But he wants to be. Now, his brother Jake was an outsider as well. But the difference between him and his brother is that Jake has gone in there in an active motion within his boxing career, taking fights one after another. And you can argue, yes, they're all MMA guys. They're still combat athletes nonetheless. And they stepped in there, and Jake won most of these fights, not including the Tommy Fury fight. But he's part of the guys. He's one of the guys. He's one of the boys in the locker room. Because he doesn't go out and snitch on anybody. He doesn't go out and sue anybody for their fight purses out of all things. This is the problem that a lot of people have with Logan Paul. Even though a lot of people hate Dylan Dennis, he is literally the symbol of anger to a lot of people when you have an image of your mind, Khabib flying in the air like an eagle, stomping his head in, and then Anthony Pretty Boy Taylor going and punching him at a Dallas DAZN event right in front of everybody. And you got to think he is the symbol of many people's anger and frustration. Yet, many people sided with Logan Paul as a result of that particular story. Now, why? Why did they do that? I'm going to tell you why. Because you just don't do that in the fight world. Just like Colby Covington. Let's get to Colby Covington right now, right? He pressed charges on Fabricio Verdum for, by the way, throwing a boomerang at him, and out of all places in Australia. He tried to sue Jorge Masvidal when Jorge Masvidal supposedly assaulted him outside of a steakhouse in Miami weeks after their professional fight they had with each other. And then Masvidal comes back and literally sucker punches him. To my opinion, by the way, literally alters Colby Covington's entire career trajectory. Because after that punch, I got to be honest with you, Colby Covington was never the same. And this is something you got to understand, that just because it didn't happen in the ring, it doesn't mean that it doesn't affect you in the long run. And by God, it definitely did affect Colby Covington in the long run in ways that you may not really have seen before. Right? So understand this. Understand this. A lot of guys leave their careers in the gym. And as a result of that, they are damaged, they go in the ring compromised, and they sometimes go in the cage and in competition as the lesser version of themselves. And Colby Covington was no different than that. And somewhere down the line, somewhere in people's satisfaction, he had it coming to him. Why? Because you just don't do that. You don't sue people just because they went and assaulted you outside of a steakhouse in which you had provoked this whole situation just for your own reasons of fight promotion. And I got to be honest with you, he didn't get any pay-per-view points on that particular fight, which is probably the reason why Colby Covington is suing. But guess what? Guess what happened behind the scenes as a result of that? He said, you know what? The UFC said, please, don't sue Jorge Masvidal. We'll give you a title shot against Leon Edwards. And that's exactly what happened. They paid Colby Covington off. On top of that, they gave him a title shot against Leon Edwards, which he didn't deserve, all because the UFC had signed Jorge Masvidal to a multiple fight contract. By the way, a multiple fight contract that he isn't even fighting out of, but rather using Jorge Masvidal as sort of a feeder league with the promotion that he has going on with Game Bred MMA, or Game Bred Bare Knuckle MMA, or Game Bred Boxing, in which he's going to do against Nate Diaz, and among other boxing fights that he has under his promotion. That's going to be a part of UFC Fight Pass. So they have a lot at stake with Jorge Masvidal, not just as a fighter, but as a co-promoter of the UFC. So they had to do something. They had to save face and tell Colby, hey, listen, drop the lawsuit. And by the way, we never heard of that lawsuit ever since. Jorge Masvidal went on with his career. Colby Covington went on to get a title shot. Brought Donald Trump out again, only to disappoint him again. And here we are. Problem solved. Because the UFC saw that this was going to be a problem. So you see, there are problems where you sue certain fighters, right? If you were to sue Ryan Garcia, does Ryan Garcia really deserve to have all of his money taken away just based on the fact that he took steroids in the ring? I got to be honest with you, there's a lot of guys out there that feel that he does, that he deserves to have everything taken away from him. The question is it right? And many Ryan Garcia supporters are just going to say flat out off the top that it's not right. It's not ethical. Especially if you look at it from a street perspective, right? Forget the other perspectives of ethical practices that are in the ring, or ethical law practices that deal with lawsuits and civil cases. I mean, we're talking about just plain old, good old boys club in the locker room that I just mentioned to you about Logan Paul earlier. Not a lot of people are going to find Devin Haney appealing after this. Because, look, here's something that you got to understand about Ryan Garcia, right? As much as Ryan Garcia is annoying to many of you, Ryan Garcia made that fight. And let me explain what I mean by when I say that Ryan Garcia made that fight. He made that fight in a way where it was marketable. It was fashionable for people to turn up and tune in because they were curious. And not only that, Ryan Garcia brought that curiosity to the world of fighting. Let me explain what I mean by that. Whenever you bring up conspiracy theories, there's a large group of people around the United States, and in particular the world, that are going to be attracted by this message. So as a result of this message that is attractive to the QAnons, the MAGA people, the Alex Jones people, all these types of people that is an ever-growing number in the United States, you're going to be a popular figure. You're going to become transcended beyond the sport of boxing or whatever it is that you do, whether it's MMA or other sports. So in other words, because of that transcendent leap that is going on with Ryan Garcia and the new cult following that he has, it's only going to result as Devin Haney becoming even more unpopular based on these business decisions that he's making. So, as a fellow Muslim brother to Devin Haney and his father, Bill Haney, and if you guys are watching this in any kind of way, and hopes that you do watch it, here's what I want to say to you guys. I understand that you want the fight footages removed. I understand that you want the lawsuit. My God honest advice is you got to drop one of them or keep one of them. In other words, you're either going to sue Ryan Garcia or you're either going to ask for the fight video to be removed. You can't have both of them. If you decide to do both of them, the way that the world is going to look at you is see you as somebody that is petty, see you as somebody that is spiteful, and will see you as somebody that is a sore loser, even though you really didn't lose this one. And here's the funny thing about this. Not only will you be seen as a sore loser, you will also be seen as a sore winner. Because by the end of it, at least on record, Devin Haney, you did win this. You won. Think about it. You didn't win that night. You didn't get your hand raised that night. And that same exact night in April 20th when we witnessed you getting knocked down a few times but surviving, that, I got to be honest with you, is a win in and of itself, surviving that onslaught that Ryan Garcia put on you. That is a win in and of itself. It showed your toughness, it showed your grit, but at the same time, it's one of these situations where, do you really want to be seen as tough to the rest of the world? Because when you're seen as tough, all it is just somebody that lacks defense. Really, from a technical perspective, let's just be honest about it. That's really what it is. You lack technical perspective and prowess in that matter. So I honestly think that it's a bad choice for Devin Haney to do that. So I plead with you, if you or Bill Haney are watching this, please, by any means, do not go with both. You got to go with one. Okay, so now that I mentioned you can't go with both and you got to go with one, what is the best course of action? Well, here it is, right? Like I said, you've won in a sense where you're already keeping your undefeated record. You've won because you're already still undefeated because of keeping that undefeated record. So you can do a lot with that in terms of marketing and how you're going to value yourself to the world. So asking for a video to be removed. By the way, I understand that the fight was not exactly the way that you had wished it had gone to be, but you really gave a good account of yourself of showing your toughness. And again, I know that showing toughness in a ring does nothing but really show you that you are defensively irresponsible, but still, it is an attribute that is positive that you can still market yourself out of. So, the video removal is not a good idea because of that. What about the lawsuit? Is a lawsuit a good idea? To be honest with you, the lawsuit is probably a lot better in the public eye than it is with you trying to remove something that a lot of people can easily download or something that people in the piracy world already have a copy of. So you asking DAZN or all these other networks that were hosting the fight to remove the footage, I don't think that really does anything, especially in the internet culture of the world. So that's something that you got to understand. Look, think about this, right? Who deletes most, other than me, of course, on social media, because there's a lot of wild comments that I say and then I go and delete them right away, right? Who else in a combat sports space deletes all of their comments the minute, let's say, it gets too hot or gets too controversial? You know who it is. Conor McGregor. He constantly tweets and then deletes certain things because maybe somebody got in his ear and said, hey, that's a bit distasteful. Hey, you can't say this. This is a bit racist. Or you can't say this because it's going to destroy your brand to a certain degree. All right. Well, here it is, right? Here's something you got to understand. People still have them. Okay, people still have those particular tweets and those particular social media posts that you had made. People screenshot them, and the videos of these fights are really no different in that aspect. So I want you to think about that. The videos on the fights, people already have them. So the better course of action, I think, is a lawsuit, even though I don't think it's the most... I don't think it's the best decision either. But if you're going to have to pick one, you're going to have to go with the lawsuit because at least you'll make money, extra money out of it. You'll make Ryan Garcia pay for the money that he had gambled. Because, by the way, he had won a lot of money just based on betting on himself in that particular fight. So, I think the best course of action is to just let it go altogether. But if you got to pick one, it's got to be with a lawsuit because, yes, the lawsuit, it's not going to make you look good, but a lot of people are not going to know about it. Removing the fight footage, I think, only makes you look petty. And if you don't understand that, then I got to tell you, man, you're not in touch with the people in the streets. You're not in touch with the people that's your everyday common man that really don't understand about overturns in boxing or having their records expunged based on a steroid allegation. So, unfortunately, man, Ryan Garcia has a lot to think about in what he needs to do in his future. He says that he wants to go into the UFC. I don't know how much of that is possible, considering that he does have a suspension in boxing. And if that somehow bleeds over into MMA, I would imagine not so, only because, well, it's a different sport, but again, it's the same commissions. Now, if he was to fight MMA, maybe he could fight MMA in other jurisdictions. Like, for example, if the UFC was to have a European card in the UK, or have a card down south in Mexico, or have a card in Europe, or anywhere that isn't in the United States, or in particular Las Vegas, maybe you can get a license to fight MMA. But that's what he's talking about right now. That is what he's trying to do, at least moving forward from his career, because from what it seems like, he's just totally over boxing. And if he really is innocent and he really didn't do anything in terms of taking substances that he shouldn't have, well, you know, then he really has a lot to worry about, right? Because there apparently are real people out there behind the scenes that are after him. And again, this is me saying this as a Devin Haney supporter, right? I'm just calling it right down the middle and calling it how it is. And look, here's the thing. If you want to do MMA content, if you want to do news and journalism, period, you got to understand, man, you're not going to make friends with a lot of people. It's not what you're in the business to do so. You're not in it to make friends. You're not in it to satisfy anybody, unless, of course, you're Nina Drama. Now, look, somebody like that who does MMA content that is favorable towards the powers that be, I mean, I guess that's a lane in of its own, but when you're in a lane that requires you to interact with normal, everyday, average people, okay, they're going to want you to give a very honest take, and sometimes an honest take that is really no different than what they are thinking. But either way, Ariel Helwani was right about journalistic integrity. That's something that a lot of people are missing nowadays in the MMA combat sports space, because guess what? A lot of these guys are not real journalists. They're not trained to be journalists. They're trained to only be fans. And as fans, they're just going to have one-sided opinions that really has no regard for other situations other than what is favorable to their favorite fighter. So that is all that I have for this particular episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And for the last 1 minute, I'm going to give you guys some video suggestions that I have on my catalog right now. So the latest video that I have right now, it is with Khabib and one of his teammates sort of being part of an attack that had happened in southern Russia. I urge you guys to take a look at that video. It is on my video section. Khabib's gym mates being part of the terrorist attack that had happened in southern Russia. Go check that out. Also, go check out my coverages that I've done for UFC Saudi Arabia all throughout the week, and a whole bunch of episodes and videos that I have on my live section. And by the way, if you're tapping in right now, please hit the like button. hit the subscribe button, because I promise you I will drop nothing but the most epic mixed martial arts content, I swear to you, in the history of mankind. So like and subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. I will see you guys in the next videos and the next content to come, inshallah.